Hi there and welcome along to this video series on Native Instruments RAZOR with me, Larry Holcomb. For those of you that don't already own RAZOR, you can purchase it from the Native Instruments website for €69. It actually exists as an ensemble within Reaktor. So an ensemble is really just another word for an instrument, and Reaktor is Native Instruments' open source kind of plug-in designer application, but it also comes with pre-programmed ensembles or instruments. So when you purchase RAZOR, if you don't already own Reaktor, you can actually download a free Reaktor player which RAZOR will work within. But if you already own Reaktor, it will just load within that. I'm going to now open RAZOR within Reaktor in standalone mode. So now Reaktor's open, I've got a player tab over here within the browser, and I have this RAZOR written here and this little icon that tells me it's the RAZOR ensemble. So if I double click on that, it's going to load it into Reaktor. So RAZOR is an additive synth, and it works on the principle of additive synthesis. So some of you may never have come across additive synthesis before, so I'm going to go through that to start with. So additive synthesis creates timbres or tones by adding multiple sine waves together. This makes use of the fact that a bright waveform, such as a sawtooth wave for example, is made up of what we call a fundamental frequency, which determines the pitch and is the loudest, and then a series of multiple harmonic overtones or partials that make up the sound. So in other words, additive synthesis works by adding multiple sine waves together to build up complex waveforms. The partials that are generated can be harmonic or inharmonic depending on how they mathematically relate to the fundamental. So in that way, an additive synth such as RAZOR can be used to create very rich, lush melodic sounds, or also quite harsh, kind of inharmonic sounds as well. In a way, you can think of additive synthesis as being the opposite of subtractive synthesis. In subtractive synthesis, we start with harmonically rich waveforms, such as a sawtooth wave and square wave, and then we filter and sculpt out the frequencies until we reach the desired sound. With additive synthesis, however, we build up complex waveforms by adding simple sine waves together. I'm going to give you a demonstration of how you could manually achieve additive synthesis now. So what I have here is a logic project, and it's made up of multiple test oscillators all generating sine waves. I've chosen A as my example here, the note of A. So the first harmonic I've chosen, or the fundamental frequency, is A1, which is 55 Hertz. So you may need to know a little bit about basic synthesis in order for this to make sense. So if this is a little bit confusing, it'd be a good idea to read up on basic synthesis to start with. But the first fundamental frequency is 55, which would mean my next harmonic is going to be 110. Which is 55 add 55. I'm going to be creating something similar to a sawtooth wave in this example, which is made up of odd and even harmonics. So my next harmonic is going to be 110 plus 55, 165. So it's not quite exact, but that makes it an E, which is a fifth up from A, so harmonically related to the fundamental frequency. So what I've done is I've carried on from that point, adding 55 every time. And what that creates is something like this. Here's my fundamental. Very low, 55 Hertz. And as I unmute these test oscillators, I'm building up a sound which has a much more complex tone to it. Let me just mute that. So this is exactly how RAZOR works. RAZOR has a multiple sine wave generator within it, which is able to generate sine waves at different pitches, which enables us to make complex waveforms just out of simple sine waves. I have RAZOR on a track here. Just going to open it up. So looking at this graphic display in the middle here, which we're going to go through later, we can see a similar kind of thing. So by fundamental frequency, the lowest and the loudest, and then a series of harmonics or overtones on top of that. So that's generated in the same way as I did it manually there, by having lots of sine wave generators that are capable of generating sine waves simultaneously. So within RAZOR, a lot of the effects, in fact every single effect, with the exception of the dynamics effects like the compressor and limiter and distortion, all work by manipulating the partials rather than being straight up audio effects. So in a subtractive synth, the filter would be an audio effect that would remove frequencies in order to affect the sound. Whereas in RAZOR, filters work by actually manipulating the partials. So if you wanted a low pass filter to create a duller sound, you'd actually remove partials or remove harmonics to achieve that, rather than it being an actual audio effect. That means that RAZOR is capable of a very, very precise cutting sound. In fact, if there was one word I'd have to use to describe RAZOR, it would be precise. It has a very, very precise clinical sound to it. Another example of this would be the reverb in RAZOR. So rather than being an audio effect that we'd be used to seeing with reverb, in RAZOR, the reverb is actually achieved by, again, manipulating the partials, which means that you can achieve an effect of actual pitched reverb. So rather than the reverb tail from previous notes continuing, the reverb tail will actually change in pitch as you change the note, which is a really cool effect. So we're going to be looking at this as we look through the series, but hopefully that's kind of given you a little bit of an overview of what additive synthesis is and how it works within RAZOR. So in the next video, we're going to have a look at the interface of RAZOR and also some of the preset sounds, which are known as snapshots. See you then.